Since the US now has two proxies, Pakistan and Bangladesh, to combat India, and Nepal also has a significantly long border with India, and the US also knows this. And here in Nepal, the government seems to be inclined towards China. Yes. How do you see Nepal being interest of India, China, and the US, all top nations? Are we doomed? Is Nepal doomed? Is the question. Interesting question from a Nepalese perspective. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's assume that every nation is selfish and doesn't care about Nepal. Okay, let's assume that the US doesn't care about Nepal, India doesn't care about Nepal, China doesn't care about Nepal. All these countries only care about their self interest. And Nepal is simply a geopolitical pawn on the chessboard for these nations. Let's assume that. Okay, I'm not saying it's the truth, but let's assume it. Let's see it from the worst case scenario perspective. So what happens? So right now the situation is that yes, the US is it now has two vassals, two proxies in the subcontinent, East and West Pakistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Pakistan is West Pakistan, Bangladesh is East Pakistan, and they are conducting the whole civil war, proxy war in Burma, and they're trying to create an artificial Christian nation out of Indian territory and Burmese territory and Bangladesh territory. They want an island which belongs to Bangladesh to create an air force base or whatever, and so on and so forth. They are doing all this. The US also has its fingers in Nepal. There is this power project that they are involved in, and there is Christian conversion activities that the Americans are doing directly or indirectly in Nepal. Lots of Nepalese are getting converted to Christianity, right? So the US is doing that in Nepal. Politically, the Nepalese politicians seem to be aligning with China. It's a fact. Yes, there is a very strong anti-India sentiment in Nepalese politics. If you want to win elections, win votes, and be popular, you have to say that there is a big enemy, and that's India, and then try to get favor from China. And that's a game they've been playing for a very long time, since the downfall of the Nepalese monarchy. Very sad downfall of the Nepalese monarchy. Uh, so the king no longer has any power. The king, who was the father figure and who actually cared about his subjects, no longer is in power, and now you are at the mercy of politicians in Nepal, right? And you are no longer a Hindu Rashtra. Now you are a secular whatever republic of sorts, whatever. And the politicians are inclined towards China. Now, what does China seek? Right now, there seems to be a rapprochement of kinds between in China and India. So, if that happens, if that solidifies, then Nepal will become less of a playground for geopolitical intrigue between the two nations. Uh, but let's say the Chinese and India are still confrontational, still adversaries, then the Chinese will seek to turn Nepal into a Chinese vassal state. Now, not an occupied territory, but a vassal state. They will want Nepal as a buffer zone between India and Tibet. So they will Nepal to be very strongly pro-China. They will want to control all the politicians in Nepal, but they will want Nepal to remain nominally independent. Okay, and the Chinese, they typically don't care what you do culturally. They will not try to destroy your culture. The Chinese won't do that. When it comes to Tibet, they have imposed Chinese culture, language, all that, because Tibet is an occupied territory. It's part of the Chinese nation today. Nepal is not. So they will not interfere with your culture. They don't care what you do culturally as long as you're politically aligned with them. The US will not be satisfied with simply you being politically aligned with the US. They will want to destroy your culture entirely and Christianize you, because that's how you completely control a people. So that's the difference between the US and China. When it comes to India, India has a history of benign neglect towards Nepal. When King Tribhuvan said that I want to join India and make Nepal part of India, Nehru said no, 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 not interested. Right? So and culturally and demographically, we are the same people. We know that. Uh, but India has always either had a policy of benign neglect towards Nepal, and sometimes India has been harsh towards Nepal. I can remember at least two instances of India blockading Nepal, and that, I would say, forced Nepal to turn to China. So you cannot say that India is not at fault, is entirely blameless, and the Nepalis are to blame for wanting to align with China. The Chinese have never blockaded Nepal. India has done that at least twice. including once in the not too far away past. Uh, that's the situation when it comes to people connections. India and Nepal with the same people. The Nepalese people and the Indian people can travel without visas to each other's countries, and we have an open border. And Nepalese people are more than welcome in India. You can live your whole life here. You have the right to serve in the Indian armed forces, which nobody else gets, which says that we trust you and we see you as our own people. So that's a civilizational connection. Um, so I would not say Nepal is doomed. If Nepal is aligned with India, Nepal won't be doomed. If Nepal is aligned with China, which is a different culture, not completely different, but the Chinese Communist Party culture is different. But if Nepal is aligned with China, it is not doomed, but you'll become a puppet to a significant extent of China, and you'll have to toe the line and all that. And if you're aligned with the US, you will end up losing your identity. So these are the choices you have to make. Uh, I am perfectly happy Nepal remaining independent and being on the best of terms with India, and I think that would be the best for the Nepalese people. And of course, the people of Nepal, the country of Nepal, should have the right and the option to have any relations it wants with any nation it wants. What's wrong with that? As a sovereign nation, you have the right to do that. Be friendly with China, be friendly with India, be friendly with the US, be friendly with everybody if you wish. From my perspective, I would say don't align yourselves with nations that are India's adversaries. But at the end of the day, it's your choice.